I always thought AC/DC would be a great top 20. It was on my initial wish list. I thought that it would absolutely make for a great topic. As I've said many times, when we do these top 20s, you have to do them with
Eddie Trunk's taking some well-deserved time off. Lucky for you, we record every show. Listen back and pick out the absolute best of Trunk Nation. Best conversations, best guests, and best callers. This is the best of Trunk Nation on SiriusXM's Faction Talk.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Eddie Trunk, and this is the best of Trunk Nation on this Memorial Day Monday. Hope everybody is enjoying a long holiday weekend. And again, we certainly do not want to forget the reason for this holiday on Memorial Day, remembering those that made the ultimate sacrifice on this day. As we get ready to get back to it live with you guys tomorrow, we'll be back live as usual starting at 3 o'clock Eastern here on Faction Talk 103 and the app. I am off today, so we have a best of show for you on this Memorial Day, and it is one of our top 20 shows. I've been telling you we're going to get to doing another top 20 or some variation of it in the very near future. We have brought you some top 20s from the archives on recent best ofs, and people have really enjoyed those, and we'll do another one for you today. Since AC/DC is getting ready to tour America once again, we're going to take you back to 2018. And my AC/DC top 20. My favorite 20 AC/DC songs run down for you with clips of all the songs. That's how we're doing Memorial Day Monday here on the Best of Trunk Nation. Let's get to it right now.
We are ready for the next Trunk Top 20. Follows in the footsteps of the very first one, which was Aerosmith. And then we moved on to Kiss. Most recently, we did Van Halen. And now we jump into AC/DC land. And I got to tell you, I always thought AC/DC would be a great top 20. It was on my initial wish list. I thought that it would absolutely make for a great topic. As I've said many times, when we do these top 20s, you have to do them with bands that have in-depth catalogs that are universally known and loved, and have a lot of songs to pick from and a lot of songs to work from. And AC/DC certainly checks all those boxes. You got to have a band that's got a deep catalog and that inspires a lot of passion. And AC/DC, obviously one of the biggest bands in the world. And it's interesting timing, and trust me, I did not plan it like this, that we are doing this AC/DC Trunk Top 20 at a time where there is a lot of buzz about AC/DC. Now, I stress everything that has been out there about AC/DC has been unconfirmed on any official capacity. Like, nothing from the band officially, nothing from their management, nothing from their record label. But of course, we talked extensively about this when you have photos leaking out from the guys at a studio in Canada where they made their last 3 albums. Well, it's going to get people talking about AC/DC and maybe some activity coming down the pike. And of course, the big news here is that Brian Johnson was sighted at the studio. It would have made sense, and a lot of people would have expected Axl Rose to have been a part of this, given the fact that Axl Rose and Guns N' Roses just went on a hiatus from their tour. But it's great news, and I mean that with all respect to Axl, but let's be honest, it's great news that we are seeing Brian Johnson hovering around the AC/DC camp again, and even Phil Rudd, if these pictures prove to be real, and there's nothing to say that they aren't. So there's a lot of excitement about AC/DC right now. Will this lead to some official announcement? Will this lead to an album? Will this lead to a tour, a single, anything? Whatever the case is and whatever it turns out to be, there are going to be a lot of excited fans just at the prospect of seeing activity from this band, even though, as I've often said, they are one of the most covert bands in the world in terms of letting anybody know what's going on and putting the word out there and really being in touch with fans. I mean, they have zero social media presence. They really don't do any interviews of any kind unless they have something to promote, and even then, it's quite limited. So we don't know what they're thinking. We haven't really known what they're thinking ever since Brian was dismissed from the band, and now allegedly back in. Who knows? So it's going to be one of those deals, and we've seen this before with AC/DC because it's how they operate, where we are just going to get dropped a record one day or a song one day with a picture and like, ta-da, we're back, and here's what we're doing. That's just how they roll, and hey, they're AC/DC. It's worked for them. They are simply one of the biggest bands in the world. So I'm about to roll down for you the 20 greatest AC/DC songs in my humble opinion. And I can tell you this was incredibly difficult, but that's what makes for great Trunk Top 20s. You want it to be difficult. I was making some tweaks and some changes to this list right up until the time that I started doing the show, sending Ed an update and making some revisions. Ed has said in the past he thinks this is the most difficult of the 4 so far. Ed, I'm assuming you have a list to chime in with tomorrow?
I will have a list prepared.
Okay, so tomorrow, as you know, if you've listened to past Trunk Top 20 shows, we have done the reaction show, and that indeed will happen tomorrow, where you guys call in and give me your top 20 lists. The entire show tomorrow dedicated to what you think should be the, or in your view, are the top 20 AC/DC songs. And we'll get your feedback. We'll get your list tomorrow. I'm sure we'll be hearing from some celebrity friends with their lists.
Yeah.
And we'll see if that, who chimes in tomorrow. I'm not sure which way that's all going to go, but I love hearing from you, the audience, most importantly. This is your show. It's our show. And you let me know what you think of AC/DC. As I said before, don't send me the lists via email. I'm not going to be able to read them down on the air. It's just too many. Do your best to make your list, get through on the air and read it. And if you don't, post it online. And you can tweet it to us at SiriusXM Volume and at Eddie Trunk. And we'll be looking at some of them. And I'm sure, like past top 20s, lists have trickled over for over a week after we've done the shows with people like, oh, and by the way, I want to hit you with my top 20 on AC/DC. So that's fine. We can do that.
Oh, what was
it's a gift that keeps giving.
Mike McCready waited, a week and a half to call in before he talked about his Van Halen top 20?
Yeah, he did.
Actually, we need to reach out to Brewer to see if he'll contribute tomorrow.
Yeah, we should do that. I mean, there's a number of people. It's just a question of getting them on board and seeing if they are up for doing it. There are some people, believe it or not, that check out on doing this because it's so agonizing for them that they just can't do it. And I almost understand that. But then you got to take a step back from it and be like, come on, man, this is not the letter of the law. This is not this is just fun. It's just fun, and it's just having fun, and there's no right or wrong answers. Everybody's going to have their opinions. Everybody's going to have their eras of what they prefer and like, and different things that touch them. And as I said before, it's always fascinating to see how old people are when they give their top 20s on any of the bands we've done, because the reason I ask that is that plays into it. I mean, if you're younger, maybe you got into AC/DC later, like in the 80s. If you're older, maybe you're a little more into the Bon Scott records and the 70s. And that's another thing that's going to make this one so much fun, because much like Van Halen, we have the two different worlds to pick from. The Bon Scott era, the Brian Johnson era. Unlike Van Halen, the Bon Scott era was not as successful, not nearly as successful in America than the Brian Johnson era, which yielded the band's biggest selling album of their career. Although Sammy Hagar, and there's always that argument going back to Van Halen, that Sammy Hagar's era of Van Halen sold more records or what have you. I don't know. I just know, coming off of that list that we did, clearly the Roth era of Van Halen was way more celebrated and represented in most of the lists. It's going to be really fascinating to see how that shakes out tomorrow with AC/DC, given that the Bon Scott era was commercially less successful, but loved more by most hardcore fans, while the Brian Johnson era was way more commercially successful and sold way more records and is also loved by AC/DC fans. But obviously is, the hardcore guys, they're still going to revert to the early 70s records or the mid 70s records. So we're going to have some fun with this. I'm going to count down my 20. We're going to get our first break in here, and then we'll come back and we will start with song number 20. Remember, when we do these lists, they are weighted. And that makes it difficult too, because once you settle on the 20 songs you're going to do, then you've got to put them in an order. And that can be brutal. That can be just as brutal as getting the 20 done. So I started out with a master list of about 30. I cut it to about 22. I made some tough cuts. I subbed out a song just in the 11th hour, shifted a couple things around in the order, and now I'm ready to reveal to you the Trunk Top 20 on AC/DC. We will do it right after this on Trunk Nation.
Here at Trunk Nation, we understand the uncontrollable urge to call, but don't, because Eddie's not here. This is the best of Trunk Nation with Eddie Trunk, Sirius XM's Faction Talk. Welcome back to the best of Trunk Nation. So good, you have to hear it again. Faction Talk. This is the Trunk Top 20.
We are back. It's Eddie Trunk, and this is the Trunk Top 20 on AC/DC. As previously mentioned, our fourth Top 20 show, the fourth band we're featuring, and excited to dig into this one. So let's do it without further ado and start at number 20. And at number 20 is a song from the Brian Johnson era. It is a song that, like a couple other AC/DC songs that may or may not be on my list, has become a sports anthem. That's always a fascinating thing, isn't it? When you hear songs that all of a sudden become played in sporting events and almost become like instant, immediate expectations to hear the song if you're at any of your favorite sports teams. And this song has certainly become that. It comes from an album, The Razor's Edge, an album that was produced by the late Bruce Fairbairn. I believe the only album he produced for AC/DC. Bruce was very well known for producing some of Bon Jovi's biggest records, amongst other things, including some of the Loverboy albums early on. Canadian producer who sadly passed away a number of years ago. But he was very known for his big sounds and the big sounds he was able to get. And I don't know if there is any bigger sound that AC/DC ever created sonically than when they did The Razor's Edge, the production and the mix of that record. And of course, the song I'm talking about, which has become a bona fide sports anthem, is Thunderstruck at number 20 from the Brian Johnson era. It's got that great build-up. I mean, that's a big signature of so many AC/DC songs. The big build-up, the riff that starts out, the big kick drum coming in, the big giant chorus, and then of course the song kicks in and goes right into that patented AC/DC groove. So at number 20 on the Trunk Top 20 is from The Razor's Edge and Thunderstruck. In case you forgot, Ed, give him a little reminder.
Coming in, please. Yeah, the ladies want your kind. You've been thunderstruck. Thunderstruck. Yeah, thunderstruck. Thunderstruck.
And of course, I mean, you just think of a basketball team coming out onto the court, football team running out onto the field. The song, of course, we're giving you a little taste of every song here, but that big build-up that happens in that song and the chanting and all that, one of the things that, of course, played into it being a big sports rally song that it's certainly become over the years since its release. So from The Razor's Edge, Thunderstruck at number 20 on the Trunk Top 20 for AC/DC. Now, as we move to 19, here's a song that was a late addition, the last song added to my list. This was not in my 20, and I was struggling greatly with this on the sidelines. And I'll be honest, I was, as often is the case, I was sent a lot of top 20 lists by fans and listeners as soon as I announced AC/DC. So some of you guys went to work on this real early and started emailing me lists. And I saw this song already pop up on a few fan lists. And I was like, shit, I don't have that on mine. And I went and I even pulled out the Powerage record and put it on. And I'll tell you, that's how much I got into doing this, because it was so difficult. I pulled out all my CDs. I'm clicking through the tracks. I'm listening, even though I know the songs, I'm listening to the songs. I'm trying to figure out what I can pull off, what I can leave in, what really is a big omission on my part. And this was a song that right up till I did this show was on the sideline and I had to bring in. I don't remember what I booted out to put it in, but I'm not going to tell you anyway, because I don't know, maybe it's going to pop up later. I don't know. I don't want to reveal anything here yet. But the song I'm talking about is, and Ed, you got to play this right from the top because it's classic Bon Scott. And it comes from the Powerage album, and it just kicks ass like so many AC/DC songs do. And it's got that Bon Scott attitude and snarl. I'm talking about, from Powerage, Kicked in the Teeth, the closing track on that great record. Ed Leg. I mean, that's classic AC/DC. Now, as I've told you when we done past top 20s, it's so unbelievably frustrating, because of course you get into hearing these songs and you want to hear more of them and you want more of it to happen. You want more of it to go. I would love to play you more of these songs. So would Ed, but we are a talk channel and there are some restrictions on how much music we can actually play. Mm-hmm. So because of that, by design, you are getting just a little taste, as much as I'd love to give you more. But the bottom line is here, everybody knows these songs if you're any sort of rock fan. And but I know you get into it, and it's agonizing, because you're like, oh, let it go. Come on, what are you doing? But you get the idea. And yeah, at their core, I mean, AC/DC is just a heavy blues band. AC/DC has, a lot of people, I think, erroneously call AC/DC a metal band. I don't think AC/DC ever were a metal band. They never looked the part. They never acted the part. AC/DC, much like Motorhead, who Lemmy never considered Motorhead to be a metal band, they had a huge influence on metal. Don't get me wrong. And they're loud as hell. Don't get me wrong. But AC/DC transcended that. AC/DC is a loud, blues-injected hard rock band, and no better example of that than a song like Kicked in the Teeth from Powerage. All right, we move to number 18 now on the Trunk Top 20, and our first entry from what is one of the biggest selling albums of all time, and that, of course, is the 1980 landmark album Back in Black. The second album AC/DC would make with legendary producer Mutt Lange at the helm, and their first, of course, with Brian Johnson. And the album that really, really broke them wide open in America. And I will never forget, and I have had many great conversations with Brian Johnson, and he is just, as I've said so many times, one of the truly, truly good guys that you could hope to meet in the music industry. He's just a great, great, wonderful man. And look, if he is back in AC/DC, I couldn't be more thrilled. That's the way it should be, in my opinion. So Brian once told me, now again, go back to 1980, all right? And go back 38 years and put yourself in the headspace of what was going on at that time. Here's AC/DC having to replace what some felt was an irreplaceable lead singer in Bon Scott. And they bring in a relative unknown by the name of Brian Johnson, who has that gravelly voice that's such a signature of AC/DC. And Brian told me, and I will never forget when he told me this, that after he recorded Back in Black, he went out to the back of the recording studio after he heard the playback of the record and listened to it and completely thought that he was going to be sacked from the band, the record would stiff, and they would have to find a different singer, because he did not think the way he sang and the way the record was made, that he did not think that it could be commercially successful. That, of course, that album went on to become one of the biggest in the history of music. So one of the first entries from the legendary Back in Black record, and look, much like Aerosmith Rocks when we did that list, I could have just put the entire Back in Black record on and then filled in the rest of the list from there. But I tried to create balance, and there's so much good stuff. It's hard to do that, so you've got to cherry pick. This song from Back in Black, Brian told me on many occasions, was the toughest to sing. It was also once covered not very long ago by Hailstorm, amongst others. That song at number 18 on the Trunk Top 20 for AC/DC is from Back in Black, and it is shootable. It really is. And I mean, what else? What can you say about anything on Back in Black? I mean, what can you say that hasn't been said about AC/DC? It's just when bands today, you take a page out of that book. Never got fancy, never got overproduced, never changed what they did, never deviated, stayed in the pocket, stayed true to what they did, and one of the biggest bands of all time. I mean, that says it all right there. Pretty incredible. Shoot to Thrill, AC/DC from Back in Black, the number 18 song on the Trunk Top 20, and the second song of the first three on this countdown to feature Brian Johnson on vocals. So we've got two Brian, one Bon so far. Brian, of course, on Thunderstruck, Razor's Edge at 20. At 19, Kicked in the Teeth from Powerage. Of course, Bon Scott. And at 18, as you just heard, Shoot to Thrill from the Back in Black album. As we move forward on the Trunk Top 20 to number 17. This is probably still my favorite top to bottom AC/DC record. I got this album at the Jersey Shore when I was a kid. They used to have the stands on the boardwalk at the Jersey Shore, and there would be a big carnival wheel, and you would put a quarter on a number from 1 to 30 or whatever it was, 1 to 20. And the wheel would spin. And if your number came up, you would get to pick an album that was on the wall surrounding the wheel. They would have maybe 30, 40 album jackets up there. Now, if you were to win, you could not hear the record in advance. You just had to tell the guy what record you wanted, and he'd hand it to you. And I can't tell you how many records and bands I got turned on to that way. And it was also a great way to discover some new music, because if you won the record on 75 cents or $1, you could take a chance and pick some albums that you weren't sure about who the artist was or what they sounded like. And if it was no good, you could toss it or give it to somebody because he didn't pay that much for it. So I was turned on to a lot of new music and new bands as a kid by winning albums at the Jersey Shore on the boardwalk. To this day, when I walk on the boardwalk in Seaside Heights, New Jersey, I think of those days because they'd be playing the records out of the stand, and I would just sit there. My mom would give me a handful of quarters, and I'd just throw them down on the numbers and hope that I could get one or two records that way. But there are a lot of records I got turned on to with that, especially around the year of 1979, 1980, when I was really getting into rock music and really had gotten past the phase that there was no other band in the world than Kiss and letting other bands into my scope. So because you couldn't hear the records, you could only make your decisions on what you wanted based off of what the covers look like or what the band's logo looked like. So I would always gravitate towards the most rock-looking thing. And that's how I first got the Highway to Hell album, which was my first AC/DC record in 1979. Won it on the boardwalk at the Jersey Shore, saw the record, and I said, you know what? That band looks demented. The logo is cool. The guy's wearing a devil horns coming out of his head. I'm in. I'll take that. So I get Highway to Hell home, and I listened to it and loved it, and quickly became an AC/DC fan. That was my introduction. To this day, it's probably, like I said, my favorite AC/DC album. And one of the many tracks on it, and one of several that'll pop up here on this top 20, is probably the most poppy song on the record. If there was and it's amazing that this song was not, I don't, to my knowledge, was not like a lead single from this record. But it's the most sort of poppy AC/DC song, hit sounding song that they've probably made, one of them certainly, and just has that killer AC/DC groove and hook. At number 17 on the Trunk Top 20 from Highway to Hell.
What happens? I get yelled at.
Yes.
Oh.
Ask for forgiveness instead of permission. So yeah, you get the. I mean, it's still quintessential AC/DC, but it's snappy, it's poppy, it's rocking, it's everything that's great about AC/DC in about 3.5 minutes. Girls Got Rhythm from Highway to Hell, of course, produced by the great Robert John Mutt Lang, his first time working with AC/DC and setting the table for the next album that would follow that, which of course is Back in Black. At number 16, as we continue counting them down, we stay with the Highway to Hell album. I told you I love the record. And a song that became the name of the AC/DC live album. If You Want Blood, You Got It, from Highway to Hell at number 16 on the Trunk Top 20. Go ahead. It's got the pocket. It's got the riff. It's got Bon Scott snarling away. It's got that AC/DC message, that rally cry, that big chorus, if you want blood, you got it. I mean, it's got it all, man. It's got all the AC/DC hallmarks, as so many of these songs do. Really, the AC/DC formula has always been, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And there's been nothing broke about AC/DC from the first record right on through to some of the later records they made. And, as we go through this list, I mean, there are some, and I will tell you, there are some songs that I really do like on more recent AC/DC records that were very tough cuts. But I learned that lesson a while ago with you guys. I am not going to... I made that mistake on the very first top 20 I did when I tried to give equal representation to all eras. Well, since nobody else was doing it, and nobody else has done it, when they did their top 20s ever since, I ain't doing it anymore either. So I could have went the route where I wanted to give you a little taste of everything from all the different eras like I did the first time, but like I said, nobody else plays it like that, and I'm not going to either. So I'm staying in the wheelhouse of what I feel are truly the best era, the best songs, and that's where we arrive at If You Want Blood at number 16. So run them down where we're at right now. Thunderstruck at 20, Kicked in the Teeth at 19, Shoot to Thrill at 18, Girls Got Rhythm at 17, If You Want Blood at 16. That's 3 Bon, 2 from Highway to Hell, 1 from Powerage, and 2 Brian. Shoot to Thrill, our first entry from Back in Black. Thunderstruck from Razor's Edge in the 20 spot. As I was talking about and promoting this and talking about this with Ed leading into it, you can't do these all that often. you gotta provide some space and separation between the ones that we've done.
They have to breathe.
They gotta breathe. There's so much that goes into them. People take them so seriously, and there's so much planning and thought. And they have a long shelf life as well. And we'll replay them. Hey, Ed, now we've got 4. We could, and if you count the reaction shows, that's 8 radio shows that we could do that are evergreen, that we could do great best ofs on.
Nice.
So get ready for Trunk Nation vacation time.
Well, you got a metric shit ton of vacation to take anyway before the end of the year.
I got I got a few weeks here to burn. So yeah, you could be hearing all of them again. Aerosmith, Van Halen, AC/DC, and of course we did Kiss. And who will be the fifth one? The next one after AC/DC? I don't know. I got some ideas. People are hitting me with stuff already, but we'll see. Well, I know where you're going, Ed. I don't even need to finish your statement.
You think I'm going to say Rush, but no. What I'm going to say is because to coincide with the biopic this fall, we got to do Queen soon.
Rush would be ridiculous if we get to Rush. There's a lot we could do. There's no shortage of subject matter, but right now we are living in the AC/DC world, and this is going to be as good as any that we've done. So let's move forward to number 15. And this is a song, interesting story with this, because this song became popular long after it was originally recorded and released. It actually was put out with an accompanying video for the first time in the U.S. during the Brian Johnson era of AC/DC, while Bon Scott was long deceased. And this song became a very, very big hit for AC/DC. And again, the thing with the Bon Scott era, and the reason why I think so many people feel so strongly about it, is just the character that Bon Scott was. I mean, the personality that just dripped through in his lyrics, in his vocals, in the way he delivered them. It really was just screamed of character and attitude. And that's one of the things people loved, no matter if Bon was singing softly or screaming his brains out. And it really was interesting and a testament to just how big AC/DC had become, that a song that was never, ever released in America when it was first recorded, years later would become a really big song and video for them. What I'm talking about, of course, is at number 15, Jailbreak. The territory of hearing AC/DC. And I remember working in a record store, and all of a sudden this record shows up one day, and AC/DC, Bon Scott era AC/DC, and there were a lot of people who didn't even really understand and did not know the previous incarnation of AC/DC. I know that sounds ridiculous, but you got to remember the time and place, and the fact that the world really, in a commercial sense, discovered AC/DC with Back in Black. Before Back in Black, AC/DC were an opening act in the U.S. They were not a major band, and some of the material was not even properly released in the U.S. So once they did break, there was this archive of stuff that the label could then go mine and introduce that had Bon Scott on it, along with obviously the earlier records. And that was a song, I think that the full title on that record was 74 Jailbreak or something like that.
Yeah.
Was that the year 74?
No, the name of the EP was 74 Jailbreak. That I know.
74. Yeah. So that was recorded in 74. I mean, that's really early AC/DC. And I think properly released in America probably around 84, 85, 10, 11 years after it was originally available in I'm sure, Australia and whatever markets it was put out in.
Yeah, late 84 is when it was released.
So 10 years later, that came out and became a huge hit. And it just captures all the swagger of Bon Scott, and it captures the groove. It's all AC/DC. It's all about the groove. It's all about the pocket. We talked about the fact that Phil Rudd is also allegedly back in the band, if you're to believe the current rumors and what's going on. And I had said earlier, and I really believe this, Phil Rudd is the Charlie Watts of hard rock. Much like Charlie Watts just brings that perfect pocket and groove to what the Stones do in a hard rock sense, Phil Rudd is that guy for AC/DC. And you hear that throughout all the recordings that he played on with AC/DC, certainly. So let's move forward now to number 15. Well, we just did 15. 15 is Jailbreak. We move to 14 now as we get closer to knocking off the first 10 on the Trunk Top 20 on AC/DC. I always loved this song. It is, as you would think and understand, was must have been a monumental task for AC/DC to try to follow up Back in Black. You have a record like that with that level of success. It is daunting to try to follow that up. And there have been a lot of people that, I mean, no matter what you do, there are people that are going to say it's just not as good. Because how do you ever follow up from your landmark album? I mean, how do you do it? Well, AC/DC did it by making the album For Those About to Rock. And I think when the album first came out, it probably was thought of as falling a little bit short of the task at hand in following up Back in Black. I think in retrospect, For Those About to Rock has really gained a lot higher status. Is it as good as Back in Black top to bottom? Probably not. Did it sell as much as Back in Black? Of course not. How could it? Back in Black is one of the biggest selling albums across the board in music history. But time, I think, has been very, very kind to For Those About to Rock. And I think that is with good reason, because I think it is looked at in its own lens and not as the follow-up to Back in Black. I think it's a fantastic album. One of my favorite songs on it is Evil Walks, which I always loved. Heavy song, big sounding song. Again, of course, Mutt Lange on production. So here it is at number 14 on the Trunk Top 20. He just nails it. He gets that. He goes into like Bond sort of snarl there, big time. And one of the things that I always loved about Brian, beyond just the character he is and the person that he is that he was an AC/DC fan. He gets, if you ever hear and talk to Brian Johnson about his time in AC/DC, he almost talks about it like he's just along for the ride. He never really talks about what an integral part of their story he is. He never acts like I'm the singer in AC/DC. He's always just kind of like, yeah, I'm just carrying on for the lads, And what he did in that band, and hopefully will continue to do, is just so great. And nothing sums it up more than Evil Walks, just that huge AC/DC chorus. But then it goes into that pocket and that bopping along groove, and he's just singing it nice and gravelly. And I always loved that track from For Those About to Rock. And that, of course, is Evil Walks. All right, let's go to number 13 on the Trunk Top 20 AC/DC. Just mentioned Back in Black. And we are going to go back to Back in Black. This would be the second entry from that album in our first 13 tracks on the Trunk Top 20. And again, as I said before, you could almost do, and I had this dilemma with Aerosmith. I mean, you could almost do all of Back in Black if you wanted to. And I thought about it on your top 20, and there's 10 songs on that record, and then okay, here's 10 others. Because it's that great of a record. There's just literally no clunkers on it. And I know, as sure as I'm doing this show, I'm going to hear from people, you didn't put this from Back in Black. Look, that's why it's tough. That's why you got to make the cuts. That's why this is fun to do, at the same time very agonizing. But I don't think you could have a top 20. And I am not, and anybody that knows me and has listened to me over the years, the decades, knows that I am not a hit-driven guy. Personally, I am burnt out on the hits. I don't need to hear the hits ever again. I'm much more into the deep tracks, the album tracks, and the full story on these bands. And a lot of the songs that are well known and the hits, honestly, I'm burnt out on. I don't need to hear anymore. And I'm not saying they're bad songs. I'm just saying that because a lot of them are so overplayed, you kind of look at them differently. But there are some songs in a band's catalog that are just, it doesn't matter how big the album was, It doesn't matter how popular the song was. They're just so damn good that even if they're overplayed and baked, like this one is borderline, they transcend all that because they're that good. Now, you may think, since we're talking about Back in Black and that sort of setup, that I'm talking about You Shook Me All Night Long, and I'm not. I'm talking about the title track to that album, which not too long ago, I think the last couple Christmases were used in a Walmart commercial. I mean, this is, we're starting to see AC/DC's material pop up in various places that we normally would have never seen it before. But Back in Black, sonically, groove-wise, everything about it, the message it was sending, coming back, of course, after Bon Scott passing away, that the title track to that album, the packaging of that album, the whole message that was being sent, the quality of that album, the production of that album, the song itself, it is one of the all-time classics, and I just could not leave it off the Trunk Top 20. It was not baked enough to me that it didn't warrant keeping off the list. You have to include the title track to the band. How could you do a AC/DC Top 20 and not include the title track to the band's biggest selling album and landmark record? And of course, debut with Brian Johnson and tribute to their late singer. So without further ado, you heard it, you know it, you love it, but why not use of it somewhere in your collection? That is, of course, Back in Black, the title track to AC/DC's 1980 blockbuster album and one of the biggest selling records in music history. So let me run them down for you one more time as to where we're at as we're about to crack into the top 12 of the Trunk Top 20 for AC/DC. At 20, Thunderstruck from Razor's Edge. At 19, Kicked in the Teeth from Powerage. At 18, Back in Black's Shoot to Thrill. At 17, Girls Got Rhythm from Highway to Hell. Back-to-back Highway to Hell entries. At 16, If You Want Blood. At 15, Jailbreak. At 14, the first entry from For Those About to Rock with Evil Walks. And as you just heard, at number 13, Back in Black, the title track from that album. We got 12 more to do. We got another hour to do it with. And again, remember, tomorrow, it's your turn to call in and let me know your AC/DC top 20 song lists. And we're going to have some fun with that, no doubt, as I know you guys are just chomping at the bit. And while you're listening to mine, before you guys get critical, remember, you're hearing all these songs, you're hearing mine. You're probably already starting to think, oh, geez, what am I going to cut off to make? I got to put that. The same thing happened to me. I'm like, oh, how do I not have that on there? It's brutal. So I'm having fun because I can feel through the radio airwaves people who have made their list sweating already, hearing some things that are on my list that maybe they didn't have, and then they're like, oh, man, what do I do now? Let's take a break. We'll come back, give you 12 more, working our way to number 1 on the Trunk Top 20 AC/DC on volume.
Faction Talk and the SXM app. This is the best of Trunk Nation, reheated and repackaged for your consumption on SiriusXM's Faction Talk.
Eddie Trunk back with you, hour number 2 of the Trunk Top 20, episode number 4 of this recurring series, counting back the 20 greatest AC/DC songs of all time as chosen by me in today's show, and as will be chosen by you in tomorrow's show. Remember, get ready to call in and make those lists, and we will hear from you on what you think of my list and, of course, your top 20 when we count them back with you tomorrow. We'll take as many calls as we can cram in our 2 hours to let you guys fire away and read your list down. And just a heads up on when we do the reaction show, I want to we're going to have so many people that want to jump in on this. So let's make sure you guys are ready. Run them down. Don't qualify them when we do it tomorrow. I'll remind you again, just run them right down. And we'll get as many people in as we can And then that'll trickle over, as we've talked about, probably into further days, but that's okay. Maybe some online stuff as well. And once I finish off this list, Ed will have a very nice graphic that we'll put out on social media so everybody can look at it as well, and maybe gives you some ideas when you're working on your list as well. So let's get back to the countdown here on Trunk Nation on Sirius XM 106 volume. We already gave you, bring you up to speed again where we're at. Thunderstruck at 20, Kicked in the Teeth at 19, Shoot to Thrill at 18, Girls Got Rhythm at 17, If You Want Blood at 16, Jailbreak at 15, Evil Walks at 14, Back in Black, which you just heard, at 13. As we go to number 12 on the Trunk Top 20, we go to the AC/DC album High Voltage for the first time in the countdown. And what can you say about High Voltage that hasn't been said? With so much great stuff on it, a lot of people feel that, I know a lot of folks that feel this is their favorite AC/DC album from all the way back in 1976. And when we're talking about High Voltage, there's so much good stuff on here. It's tough to sort out where you want to go. The quality of this record proven by the fact that the song that I'm including from High Voltage is the final song on the record. I mean, it's that good that most of the last songs on records are kind of clunkers or forgotten tracks, but High Voltage, the title track from AC/DC's 1976 album, comes in at number 12 on that same platform. The groove, the riff, the everything about it, and then that the message, the big chorus, the big fist in the air chorus, and that, I mean, if you're a rock fan and you got a band sounding like that, no nonsense, killer guitars, just big sounding band, and they're singing a rally cry, high voltage rock and roll. I mean, especially if you're a kid, man, it's going to get you pumped up, as it would anybody. And it still gets me pumped up. 40 years later, whatever the hell it is. High voltage rock and roll from High Voltage at number 12 on the Trunk Top 20. We're going back to Highway to Hell. As I mentioned earlier in the show, told my story about Highway to Hell, how I first got it, how it was my first AC/DC record, how sonically it still sounds absolutely amazing. Who could have predicted it was a precursor as to what would come with Back in Black a year later? But the big difference is Bon Scott, his final swan song with AC/DC, the final album, which of course he didn't know at the time that he would be doing with AC/DC. And it is just, so much stuff on here that's just so great. I could have, now I'm starting to think about it, I could have almost done Back in Black. Imagine if I did that. Back in Black and Highway to Hell. One from Bon, one from Brian, we're good. There's your 20 songs. Could easily do that. But then you're leaving some of this other stuff out. It's brutal, I'm telling you. One of my all-time favorite songs from the minute I heard Highway to Hell, and I always loved, what I loved about AC/DC is that sort of groove, and then that just bang, huge power chords over the big choruses, and nothing screams that more than Touch Too Much from the Highway to Hell album, my number 11 song on the Trunk Top 20. Here you go. All right, Ed?
No.
I just did the reveal. It's so great.
Has been set in stone. It cannot be changed.
Oh, man. I mean, everything about that is great. Everything. Just hearing that in my headphones, it's just so great. Touch Too Much. Just Bon being Bon, man. And just, it's amazing because when we're doing this, in previous bands that we've done have never been this formula. Like when we did Van Halen, you had Hagar, which was so different than Roth. You had ballads, you had keyboard era, you didn't have keyboard era, you had acoustic, you didn't have acoustic. AC/DC I mean, as we're going through this, you got giant power chords, you got great pockets and riffs, you got big gang choruses, you got snarling attitude lead vocals, and it's all great. It's not like one song is so dramatically different than the other. And that's what makes AC/DC so friggin' brilliant.
There's maybe one AC/DC song that doesn't sound like AC/DC at the top, and that's Who Made Who. Otherwise, within a moment, the second the song begins, you know it's AC/DC.
Yeah. And there's some songs, there's a little slower tempos and things like that. I get that, little different tempos. But AC/DC's AC/DC. I mean, it is the classic, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And you're hearing that and hearing it more than ever as we count down these tracks. All right, so Touch Too Much is at number 11. How many is that on Highway to Hell for me? Because I mentioned it is my favorite AC/DC record, but Touch Too Much, Girls Got Rhythm, and If You Want Blood. So we've already got 3 representations of Highway to Hell, and we've got 2 representations for Back in Black. So seeing a pattern develop here. As we break into the top 10, we go to the AC/DC album, Let There Be Rock. For the longest time, my friends would think that this was a live album, even though it's not, due to the cover and the title and all that. But Let There Be Rock is chock full of songs. I don't think this will be the last that we hear from this as we break into the top 10. 1977, the release. It's amazing when you listen to these records and these songs that it's amazing that that these songs were not huge in the US. They all became big in retrospect after Back in Black. So as we go to number 10, I don't even know where you would take this at. I think if you can start this right at the top of the track, because the way it slams in is just perfect AC/DC. Just like you said a few minutes ago, AC/DC songs, you know them from the very beginning. There's no better indicator than that. So at number 10 on the trunk top, Bon Scott just meshed right in so brilliantly with his personality and everything that he brought to the table. He is and was a problem child. From Let There Be Rock, AC/DC at number 10 on the trunk top 20, Problem Child. All right. The plot thickens as we move into the top 10 now, get a little deeper in and move to number 9. We're staying with Bon. And we're going to the High Voltage record. And man, this, so we've got the bookends on High Voltage because we have the title track, which was sitting as the last song on the record. And this is another thing about AC/DC, the great messages, the messages that they sent about what they were going through, about what they were experiencing. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. You know, how hard they were going to have to work and what they were experiencing getting there. And what a great way to open a record. What a great way to show the commitment that these guys had to make it to the top if they were going to rock and roll. And man, they sure as hell did. And then, of course, this song with the bagpipes and everything going on in it, it's just killer. So let's do it right now. A little bit of It's a Long Way to the Top if you want to rock and roll in the number 9 spot from AC/DC. Pipes blast over those riffs, man. And, of course, the message of a young band trying to make it a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. Just everyone, like you're going through this and you're listening to this and you're just like, you're catching all those grooves, all those riffs. It's like one's not all that different from the next. But they just, for years and albums, found a way to make it work. All right, as we go to number 8, this is a song that if you've seen AC/DC live, you know to this day this is a showstopper. It is a moment in the show, very visual, where they bust out the giant inflatable overweight woman, to put it correct, and have her fly over the audience. Always brings the house down. It's no doubt a Bon Scott classic for all time. It comes from the Let There Be Rock record. And, some of the great songs in rock music ever were bands singing about women, whether they have been their groupies, their girlfriends, their friends' girlfriends, whatever the case may be. And AC/DC came up with a timeless gem on Let There Be Rock back in 1977. You know her, you love her, you've seen her floating around on the stage when the band plays in recent years. At number 8, if anything about Whole Lotta Rosie, and we talked about how these AC/DC songs, when you listen to them, not all that different, right? I mean, everything just kind of, it's the same sort of groove and just different messages and choruses and lyrics and riffs, but still that same sort of thing. The one thing about that song is that song just drives the whole way through. I mean, that'll keep you bopping the whole way. Whole Lotta Rosie from Let There Be Rock. As we move to number 7 on the Trunk Top 20, I talked about this album earlier in the show if you're just joining us. And of course, remember, if you missed any of the countdown, we'll post everything online on the social medias, Twitter at SiriusXM Volume, at Eddie Trunk, and various other outlets as well, so you can see everything. If you miss any of this show, you remember if you're listening in the 2 to 4 Eastern window, it'll replay 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern. And of course, like all the shows, you can go on demand on the SiriusXM app and listen to them whenever you want. So if you're coming in and joining us late, I talked a lot about the For Those About to Rock album and how unbelievably difficult it must have been for AC/DC to follow that record up. And how I think that at the time the record came out, I think a lot of people felt like it kind of fell short a little bit. But in retrospect, I think people are realizing just how great For Those About to Rock really is. I also talked about sports anthems, and AC/DC have had a number of songs that have become those for whatever reason over the years. And this one also a big rally cry. I think a lot of the AC/DC songs that fall into that category happen because they have dramatic buildups. So earlier, with Problem Child, which just comes in right at the top, there are those other songs that have the more dramatic intros, and they seem to be the ones that sort of resonate a little bit with people who are producing stuff for live sporting events or whatever and become these sports anthems. Of course, For Those About to Rock was known for its title track. If you saw the tour, if you saw the band at that time, the cannons firing, to this day, a huge part of AC/DC's show. To this day, the song that actually ends AC/DC's show normally, the final song of the night, as they just blow up the stage with those cannons still firing loud as hell. So we get back into the Brian Johnson zone, and we give you, at number 7 on the Trunk Top 20, For Those About to Rock, We Salute You. What a message, what a statement, what a song. My number 7 are songs that even as much as they're played and as much as you hear them, you still listen to them. They still bring a smile to your face. They're still great. You're not burnt on them. And that's one of those songs for me. It's always going to sound monstrous. It's always going to sound huge. And we talk a lot about Bon Scott and what he did. I mean, you listen to these vocals from Brian Johnson. I mean, it's Brian. It's him. Obviously, it's a different guy, but man, for them to have been able to find a guy like Brian Johnson, when you listen to how great he was and in some regards still is, it's a pretty impressive, amazing thing. So For Those About to Rock at number 7 on the Trunk Top 20 for AC/DC. 6. Let's go on the AC/DC top 20. Let me run them down for you where we're at right now. At 20 was Thunderstruck, 19 Kicked in the Teeth, 18 Shoot the Thrill, 17 Girls Got Rhythm, 16 If You Want Blood, 15 Jailbreak, 14 Evil Walks, 13 Back in Black, 12 High Voltage, 11 Touch Too Much, 10 Problem Child, 9 Long Way to the Top If You Want to Rock and Roll, 8 Whole Lotta Rosie, and as you just heard as we went to break, for those about to rock, we salute you at number 7. What a tremendous message. Still to this day, a great rallying cry for rock fans and AC/DC fans. All right, we've got 6 more to do, 6 more to reveal here on the Trunk Top 20. And we continue, and yes, we go right back to Highway to Hell. As I mentioned, a favorite album of mine from this band. And again, a song that, to be honest with you, it's odd to say this when you look at this song being in the number 6 spot, that it was almost off my list. And I know that doesn't make sense, but I had to get past the bias of my knee-jerk reaction to what I feel are overplayed songs. And once I did that, I was just like, okay, if I was listening to this song and I had not heard it 1,000 times, and I had not heard it at a million events and TV shows or what have you, or jams, would I be still excluding it from my top 20? And when I thought about that and looked at that, I said, you know what? The answer is no. I can't hold it against a song, an otherwise great song, that it became a super popular song. It wouldn't make sense to do that if we're really looking at this objectively as to the best songs the band has ever made. So when I was looking at the Highway to Hell album, I initially did not include the title track for that reason. Because it was just an inherent, oh, that's expected, and there's I'm tired of it, and I'm burnt on it, and I never listen to it, to that particular song, because I hear it so much anyway. I'm like that. I'm weird like that. Most people want to hear hits and get excited to hear hits on the radio or in concerts. Not me. I'm happy to hear deeper tracks for artists that I love, because I just get burnt out. But I had to separate that. And that's why the title track to AC/DC's 1979 album and their last with Bon Scott did make the list. And then when I got past all that bias, I said to myself, okay, where would it sit? So this song literally for me went from being off the list completely and not making the cut to coming in at number 6. You heard it, you know it a million times, but I couldn't hold that against its greatness and putting it on the Trunk Top 20, the title track to AC/DC's 1979 album and last with Bon Scott, Highway to Hell. What can you say about Highway to Hell? The pocket, everything. So once I made the decision it was going to be included, I slotted it in where I did, right close to the top 5, to be honest, there at number 6. All right, as we now break into the top 5 greatest AC/DC songs of all time, at least according to me, we go to number 5, and we go back to the Powerage album. And we bring in a song that was covered by so many bands back in the day on the club circuit. A recording of this song was done by Twisted Sister, among others, as a cover. It is clearly one of my favorite AC/DC songs, being as high as it is at number 5. Just a monstrous riff. From Powerage at 5, it is Sin City. From Powerage at number 5 on the Trunk Top 20. We now move to number 4. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, you're noticing a theme. But we are going again back to the Highway to Hell album. And man, this, again, the way this starts, this opening riff, Ed, I want you to take this from the top, because as much as the entire song is great, I mean, just the way the song starts and the riff and the massiveness of it is just a beautiful thing to behold. Every time I hear anything from Highway to Hell, it takes me back to being that kid winning this record on the boardwalk, and it still does to this day, and it still holds up. At number 4 on the Trunk Top 20, it is AC/DC and Walk All Over You.
Well, you know, technically, what I did right there, I played a 30-second snip. Now, I played 2
just a different one.
Yeah.
Right.
But we paused. Doesn't the clock reset?
I got you. I agree. Totally.
It's like the shot clock in basketball. It resets.
Exactly right. You hit the rim.
Yeah.
3. We're getting so close to the big number 1 here on the Trunk Top 20. And again, when you talk about AC/DC, you're talking about some of the greatest riffs ever created and greatest songs, and just, again, the formula, if you will. The formula, the blueprint that AC/DC laid that so many have copied or tried to copy and imitate, and so few have really gotten. And this song is just, I talked a little bit earlier about tempo, and a lot of AC/DC songs have this certain time and signature and certain pocket and certain groove that everything sort of connects and goes into, right? And then there are those rare occasions where the song just smokes from top to bottom, and the tempo is a little higher and things move a little quicker, and it just goes the whole way at full throttle. And this song fits that description for me. It's still classic, quintessential AC/DC, don't get me wrong. But it is, it just moves nonstop. And the song I'm talking about at number 3 from Powerage is Riff Raff. I mean, how could you not love this? Ed, Let It Fly. Just that thing, just like I said, it smokes top to bottom. That's just got that groove and that pocket. And that's a word I know I've said a lot of times during the course of this show. Groove, pocket, but those are all the great signatures of AC/DC. And Riff Raff has all that at just a little bit of a faster tempo. It just, I don't know, that song to me has always been one of the great driving songs. My gosh, I can't tell you how many times I've played that on my terrestrial radio show, because it just moves. I mean, you can't not turn it up and start, wanting to drive, wanting to move quickly. It's just so badass. Riff Raff from Powerage at number 3 from AC/DC on the Trunk Top 20. The plot thickens. 2 more left to go. 2 more to reveal here. Number 2 song is a song that I actually had a bit lower on my initial list. And I moved it up quite significantly just before we started doing this show. And I almost toyed with putting it at number 1. But it ended up landing in the 2 hole on my countdown. I struggled with where I was going to put this song for some of the same reasons why I struggled with the inclusion of Highway to Hell. Now, I was never leaving this song out completely, but my issue was where I was going to put it. And because of that, it moved around as I formulated my list in a few different positions, ultimately landing one from the top. And right up to the 11th hour here, I almost considered it putting it at number 1. but I could not knock out what you'll soon find out was at number one to do that. And it was the same thing. It comes from the Back in Black record. And whenever you deal with an album as massively successful as Back in Black, for me, it's a bit of a two-edged sword because, yes, as great as the record is, you want to give it all the representation it deserves on the list, but then there's the burnout factor, and I realize I've got to take that out of the equation. I've got to look at the songs objectively as if I'm just hearing them for the first time, and I'm not burnt out or I'm not holding a bias against a certain song just because it is such a big song or on such a big record. So that's why I decided to move this around a little bit and then ended up moving it all the way up to number 2. I did seriously think for a second putting it at number 1, but just coming in one shy of the top spot. And that song is the song that in a lot of ways sets the table for AC/DC's explosion into the mainstream in 1980 with Back in Black. And you all know quite well, and also, interestingly enough, has become a sports anthem, like a lot of AC/DC songs. As a huge New York Giants fan, this song I know they play all the time as the team is being introduced onto the field over the PA. People go crazy. The song I'm talking about is the opening track from Back in Black. And I talked about this before too. AC/DC has the songs that just come right out and start, and just the groove and the pocket goes. And then AC/DC are also masters of creating a mood and a buildup. All the way back to my first song in the countdown, number 20, Thunderstruck is big on that. They've had those moments where there's the buildup. There's that sort of build into the main riff, build into the climax of the song, build into the drama and the heaviness of the song. And nothing better personifies that than Hell's Bells. So that, I just gave you the backstory. It was all over the place on my list. And then at the end of the day, I was just like, you know what? It's going to go at number 2. I almost put it at number 1, but I could not leave it off. I could not keep it out of the top 5 or the top 10. It just has everything. It has drama. It has build-up. It has incredible production. I mean, what else can you say? So you've heard it, you know it, you love it. But because of that, I could not hold it against the song itself because it is brilliant. Here is Hell's Bells from Back in Black. Because looking at it just as a song and a standalone moment from a brilliant record, Hell's Bells at number 2, AC/DC on the Trunk Top 20. Only one more left to go. What is the number 1 all-time AC/DC song according to yours truly? I will reveal that. I'll run down the 20. I'll give you a few other thoughts and then hit you with number 1. And then that'll tee it up for you guys and turn you all loose tomorrow on the reaction show to the AC/DC list. Coming back with my number 1 AC/DC song on the Trunk Top 20 on Sirius XM.
Here at Trunk Nation, we understand the uncontrollable urge to call, but don't because Eddie's not here. This is the best of Trunk Nation with Eddie Trunk, Sirius XM's Faction Talk. Welcome back to the best of Trunk Nation. So good, you have to hear it again. Faction Talk. This is the Trunk Top 20.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Eddie Trunk, and this is the Trunk Top 20, this time around focused and featuring AC/DC. And we have just counted down my 19 songs on the list. One more to reveal. In case you joined us late, I'm going to run down the previous 19 for you real quickly. Again, we will talk to you tomorrow and get your lists, read them back to me on the air. We'll do that for the entire show tomorrow. But I've got 19 revealed on my list. I will reveal number 1 in a second and give you a few other thoughts before we wrap up the show and the Trunk Top 20 on AC/DC. Again, at number 20, Thunderstruck. At 19, Kicked in the Teeth. At 18, Shoot to Thrill. At 17, Girls Got Rhythm. At 16, If You Want Blood. At 15, Jailbreak. At 14, Evil Walks. At 13, Back in Black. At 12, High Voltage. At 11, Touch Too Much. 10, Problem Child. 9, It's a Long Way to the Top. At 8, Whole Lotta Rosie. At 7, For Those About to Rock. At 6, Highway to Hell. At 5, Sin City. At 4, Walk All Over You. At 3, Riff Raff. And at number 2, as you just heard a little while ago, Hell's Bells. Now, that sets the stage for the number 1. And here's why I knew this song was going to be number 1. Because from the minute that I started thinking about the AC/DC Top 20, this song immediately jumped out to me as number 1. And throughout the whole process of doing the list and debating the list internally and discussing the list and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, anytime I shuffled it, anytime I thought about it, anytime I went back to the CDs and queued up some songs, I could not make the case to take this song out of number 1. So as much as I tried, as much as I debated it, I kept coming back to this song as the clear-cut number 1 AC/DC song of all time. Why? Well, the message. It just, as a rock fan, it's the rallying cry. It's from the Bon Scott years. It tells the story of rock music. And AC/DC, I mean, one of the great things about them is they celebrate in so many ways through their songs and through their lyrics, rock music. And that's one of the many things I've always loved about them. So at number 1, this was something that was not an issue for me up until the second where I almost put Hell's Bells in there instead. But I'm glad now, after having done this, that Hell's Bells stayed in the 2 spot and this song went to number 1. You probably figured out what I'm talking about by now. It is the title track to the 1977 AC/DC album, which interestingly enough does not open that record. It comes in, it's number 3 in the track listing, which always struck me as being strange. The drums, Let There Be Guitars, and the guitars and Bon and everything about it is great. To me, it just encapsulates everything about AC/DC all in that one great song. So that's why I put it at number 1. It could have gone crazy debating all of this endlessly, but that was my list. So at number 1, Let There Be Rock from AC/DC on the Trunk Top 20. Now, as you saw, maybe conspicuous by its absence here, No You Shook Me All Night Long, which may be shocking to some. And I talked about that bias of, me not including songs that off the list, I fall into that trap sometime where I hold it against the song for its popularity. I don't include it just because it's so damn popular and I'm so sick of it. But as you saw, and as I mentioned, I took that into account when I made the list. That's why I included Let There Be Highway to Hell. That's why I included Hell's Bells. That's why there are some big songs included that were popular tunes. But You Shook Me All Night Long, objectively looking at it, yes, it's a great song. And pulling out the fact that I'm sick of it beyond belief in terms of hearing it too much. I mean, it's played at weddings at this point. But that's not why I didn't include it. I just don't think as a song, taking out the overplayed, burnt out nature of it, as a song, I just don't think, I don't enjoy it more than the 20 that I put on this list. And also I want to say, and I said this a little earlier in the show, that there are songs on the later Brian Johnson records I like. Flick of the Switch, the song, was a very tough cut for me. Even Rock and Roll Train was a tough cut for me. There are things that were made later with Brian on some of those recent records that I really like a lot. But I learned my lesson when I did the Aerosmith Top 20. I was not going down that road just for the sake of including stuff when it didn't stand up to the other recordings. So there you have it, folks. The Trunk Top 20. Ed will get a graphic up for you. We'll put it out online. Dissect it. Maybe look at it as a little guideline to figure out what you're going to do with your own list. And then tomorrow, I will join you live at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And it's your turn to give me your AC/DC top 20 lists. We'll have some fun with that. You guys have about 24 hours now to maybe go over your lists or revise them or tweak them based on what I did or things you heard you might have forgotten about, whatever the case may be. And I'll hear what you have to say when we go live tomorrow and take your calls and take your Trunk Top 20s on AC/DC, or in this case, your own top 20. Thank you all for listening. Thanks to AC/DC for the amazing music.
Well, when you're looking at AC/DC, I mean, my gosh,